Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, afternoon, evening, whatever you happen to be. My name is Deadmon5. You are awesome, and this is the EMC podcast. It's where I sit down with various members of the EMC community, and we have a nice little conversation. This is the opening podcast, or the debut, I should say, and our guest this morning will be Krysyy. How are you doing this afternoon, Krysyy?
I am pretty good.
That's good. So, let's just get right into it then. So EMC's been around for 9 years. That's a very long time. That's crazy. How does that make you feel?
To be honest, I was checking and I looked at the date, and I kind of had to, I guess you would say, take a step back and go, wait, really? Like, did I miss a few years in between there? No, it's pretty amazing that we've gotten this far. Definitely one of those where you look back and you're like, oh my goodness. I mean, I wasn't there at the very beginning, but I mean, I joined in as a player pretty early on, early 2012. And just to see the fact, I mean, even saying that, to say you've been playing a game for that long is just kind of crazy in other people's eyes. But to me, it's just like, no, this is my normal.
It really, Minecraft really is timeless. Like, it's one of those games that you wouldn't think, because it's really simple in its execution. It just does it so well, and it just brings people back repeatedly, and it's just an amazing game, and it keeps, like, the community is a huge part of keeping its longevity up. So you mentioned you joined in 2012. What brought you to EMC in the first place?
Pretty much everyone on EMC kind of knows this story, but I actually didn't even know what Minecraft was. I had never played before at all. And at the time, I was dating somebody who was, I guess, astounded / appalled by the fact that I hadn't played Minecraft before. And they knew my normal video game style. At that time, I was playing Skyrim a lot. And so it was one of those types of things where they just kind of knew that I would not do well on a PvP type of server. Mm. They knew that I'm more of a creative type. I don't like the whole raids style, anything like that. And so they did a little bit of research, and they actually are the ones who found the place. And then they joined a few hours before I did. And because they were just kind of like checking out the place, and they're like, yeah, this will work. Okay. And then brought me in. And I mean, since then, I pretty much haven't put it down.
Oh, I understand. So what led you into the community manager role? How did that come about? How did you eventually get from player to admin?
I might screw up these dates, so I apologize in advance. But, so I joined in January 2012, I want to say. It was January, February, one of those. And I very quickly, I was playing all the time. I was in college. I didn't really have much else to do. Might not have been going to classes like I should have. Yeah. But anyway.
It'll be all right.
Exactly. And my boyfriend at the time actually was working in IT. And IT in the, I guess you would say, administrative field of education. Sometimes everything, hits the fan at once and you got a lot of work to do. But most of the time you're basically waiting for there to be a problem. And so he had actually messaged the old owner, Justin Guy, and basically said, hey, look, I'm at my computer. I see that, you still have some problems here and there that aren't being taken care of quickly from what I can tell online. And he was talking about the forums at that time, primarily. And they basically said, I can help out, like, just keeping an eye on the forums. And Justin Guy actually responded. He's like, how about you just be a moderator instead? So my boyfriend at the time actually became a moderator before I did, which, let's just say this, it led to one of those situations where it's like, the boyfriend's at work and I'm online and someone starts breaking the rules, and so I text the boyfriend in order to get it taken care of. And so over time it just came like, okay, why isn't she just a staff member? And so I became a staff member, and I really enjoyed being a moderator. It was really fun, except at the time there were some holes in the system that I wasn't too happy with, but it was kind of technologically limited at that point.
Oh yeah, especially in the early days of Minecraft, I understand.
Right, exactly. And we didn't have a lot of the reporting tools that we have now. People laugh, like Vanish didn't exist at all. And so if I had to catch a hacker, I had to like casually hide behind buildings. And like,
I can just picture you like hiding in a hole, just poking your head out like, there he is. Like a gopher almost. God, exactly. Yeah, that would make it really, that'd be a real big pain.
Oh, it was interesting though. But for the most part, both myself and, like I said, my boyfriend at the time, we both started doing more kind of inventive ideas when it came to events. A lot of our dual events from the past really got a lot of traction, starting with I was one of the first kind of Mega Mall owners, and when the Mega Mall did its grand opening party, like it was a big ordeal. No player had really staff hadn't been doing major events at that time either. So it was kind of the first moment for that kind of to start being on the Empire a lot. Mm-hmm. Our 2-year anniversary party, for example, went crazy. There are posts on the forums that are just amazing from it. But we had like the Blue Ribbon Hotel opening party. We had the TARDIS opening party. We had some just random parties here and there. And we started doing that more and more and more. And then when we went to Minecon in 2013, I think I have that number right, it was around Halloween time. I am very, very much a like, okay, if there's a contest, I want to be a part of it type person. And I want to go all out. So I created what has now become the infamous Red Dragon costume. And the Red Dragon costume, got me on stage. I won the costume contest, and, mentioning EMC. And at that time, Icar and Maxarius had actually invited myself and my boyfriend at the time to be senior staff members. So that got me to senior staff. And then flash forward a couple years, I got engaged to that boyfriend and then married to that boyfriend. And then shortly after that, before that, there was a change in leadership. Icar took over, and technically Icar took over before I became senior staff, but officially it was after. So, all the timelines.
Yeah, I understand. It's probably a lot to remember, especially, like I said, the EMC is 9 years old. You've been doing this for a long time. I'm horrible with dates as it is.
I start counting back. I'm like, wait, was that really 2016? Like, oh, that was 4 years ago. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, no, don't need to make us feel older than we already are.
Right. And so, we were, I think it's 2016. I want to say it was 2016. And it was one of those times that, I want to say, this is probably a better question for Icar himself, but I want to say it, what he told me was the concept of, I had been a senior staff for a long time. I had always put in the effort when it came to organizing and trying to standardize things and cover up the loopholes that were in the system beforehand. We had issues with if items were being dropped at special events and no one knew about them. Like, was that really fair to other people? Like, yes, it's fun that you got the item, but think of it from the other person's side of the view. Like, they would have been on had they known.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so kind of like trying to trying to form some kind of plan for it. It's not perfect. It never will be, but it's something that, we tried to get a little bit more in depth when it comes to, there's a certain way that things are done, and I can tell you there's a certain way things are done, rather than the way a lot of servers are run is kind of just flying by the seat of their pants from the experiences I've had.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100%. This might come out a little biased, and that's fine. I love EMC, but I explored several different servers, and there seemed to be a lack of leadership at all in a lot of them, be it PvP or creative or any other mode for that matter. And EMC was the first one that felt like a team effort versus every man for themselves mentality, and that's what made me fall in love with it, especially when you have all the support from all the different people and staff for that matter.
No, definitely. That was one of the things that kept me around too. I used to, this was ages ago. Hold on, I have dogs barking. Anyway, but this was ages ago, back whenever it was one of those situations with, a diamond block was actually a really good prize for this contest type style. Yeah. But I had this giant sheep farm, and it was just like, I need help shearing wool. Come shear wool, and the first person to get to 100 stacks of sheared wool got a diamond block. And bless his heart, Kev Man, one of our old players, was a good friend of mine at the time. Hold on, let me shut this dog up real quick.
Go ahead.
She went outside to bark. Anyway, it's always these people who walk past the front door. Anyway,
mm-hmm. I know
the whole point though was, I had people like Kev Duban who would help me with events or shearing wool. And then there will be another thing where, now granted it was a lot more simple back then, but you'd ask a question of like, does anyone have any cactus? And some would, or actually no, sandstone. Sandstone's a good example. I always asked if people had sandstone, because if you've ever looked at the Blue Ribbon Hotel, like the amount of sandstone in that thing,
mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, is all I have to say. And sandstone is still one of those items that cannot be farmed. This is like, you have to go out and you have to mine it up. Like, there's no question. I hate to think how many deserts I've been the cause of the destruction. But the main thing with that was, one shop would run out of sandstone, and I'd be like, hey, does anyone else have any sandstone? And people would definitely like, hey, yeah, I remember seeing this. Good luck on your build, like that kind of stuff. And that community feel definitely is what kept me on EMC for as long as I have been.
Yeah, it was such a unique group of people. I had say a lot of people know this story too, but I had a friend at the time. I actually need to reach out to him, see how he's doing, but he brought me into EMC, and I've taken breaks here and there. Life gets in the way, you know how it is, but I've always come back, and that's just a testament to EMC and Minecraft for that matter, is the longevity. It's really pretty awesome. So we covered some events. What are your favorite events as a whole? Like, be it to run yourself and player events, be it like something fishier along those lines.
So let's see. My favorite, I still say I just love Firefloor.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's just one of those things that it's one of those events that it's a good mix of, I have to be actively typing a ton of stuff at once, and I can relax and goof off with the players. There's some events that I can't even think during. People try to ask me a question. I'm like, hold on. I have like 5 commands I need to type. Give me a second.
Yeah, especially Mob Arena. People don't realize what goes into that. Like, that's a lot of commands. That's a lot of, oh God, what am I spawning? Make sure nothing escapes. Make sure I do this right. Make sure I open the doors. Make sure I close the doors. Answer all the questions for everybody. See who's the last player. It's a really fun event to partake in, but it's a pain to run. But it's fun at the same time. It's a controlled chaos until Elfin gets a hold of it. Then it's just chaos. But it's such a fun event. Firefloor is the same way. from a staff perspective, for those who don't know, it's like you said, it keeps you on your toes, but it isn't a grind per se. It doesn't make it so it's unfun for the staff member hosting as well. Okay, I was told to ask you about this. You have a bunch of player heads. Daybreaker wanted to know when you were going to release the red Krysyy Head.
To be honest, so here's the thing about these colored heads. I started releasing. I did the blue, green, and purple, the most common. Those are pretty much everywhere, just because they were. Then Stairway to Heaven came out as an event, and it was
God, I remember
like, okay, we've got to have something for this event, and so we did the yellow. I have quite a few other ones. My thing is that, like, I want it to be something, and I think the main issue is that every time I think I finally have a good idea for what the event's going to be, something comes along that makes me like, oh crap, there's a way to cheat at this event. I can't make this an event.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm trying to make it a new type of event. Like I mentioned before, my favorite part was always kind of coming up with these event ideas and modifying event ideas. Hole in one. It's a goofy, just jump from the sky into a thing of water, but it became, bigger based off of the interaction. An event that takes a lot of effort, but is still probably my favorite that I've dealt with recently is the high or low. Because it's game show style. Mm-hmm. Definitely takes a lot of effort though. But that was one that we almost thought about doing a red head for, but then it's a little too easy. Mm-hmm. So, there's some event ideas plotting, especially with some 1.16 stuff coming out that I'm excited about, that I could possibly see that head for, but it definitely has to be something that I don't want it to be ridiculously hard, like the yellow head. Yeah. I think that's definitely going to be one of those, just like Stairway to Heaven is, do you or do you not feel like torturing yourself?
Yeah. Oh, man, it's brutal.
Yeah, and the blue, purple, and green will remain like the, random event, Wacky Wild Wednesday event style handouts, because that's where they originated from. The red one is going to be kind of a middle ground. It's not going to be super hard to get, but it's still going to be like, you're not going to expect to see them everywhere. I will have to say that it almost was Nether Spleef.
Oh, that one's really fun.
It was close to being Nether Spleef, because we have the head that is for Fire Floor, mm-hmm. The orange one, and so we almost put it for Nether Spleef, but I just didn't feel right doing it, so I pulled it. But yeah, there's definitely ideas forming. I just want it to be a good balance. I don't want them to be everywhere.
Yeah, it makes sense. Too much of one thing, too much of a good thing, right? So, walk us through the promo process. I understand there's a thread for that, and I can link that in the description of this, and I probably will, where people can recommend one. But you get the idea, and just walk me through the promo process itself of making a new one, per se.
Okay, so depending on the holiday, obviously, if we think we want something for a holiday, obviously I do look at those submissions, and sometimes someone will suggest something for a really obscure holiday, and I'll kind of think about it and then maybe apply it to a similar type holiday. Or we've done, random stuff for all kinds of different holidays, looking back. But overall, we have our standard holidays. And when we get close to those standard holidays, I load up that form. And the first thing I do is go through and mark anything. We have it already kind of marked what we've already used and what we haven't. But we try to look for both the name ideas. So, and it's amazing how everyone can be on the same wavelength at the same time and not actually even know it.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think whenever the Trident came out, I probably received like at least 5 different suggestions from people to use it for Thanksgiving already. I'm like, yes, I know, that's planned. We got like it's the only utensil missing on the Thanksgiving plate. Like obviously that one's planned. But so it was funny to see those pour in as soon as it was announced or whatever that there was going to be a Trident. But generally speaking, we look at that form. We see if there's anything that hasn't been used for that holiday, as well as we look at the obscure holidays that, you know, I'm not going to do a promo for Cow Day. Yeah. But I've had it suggested. But I might look at and see what the item was that they wanted and see either the, you know, function of it and or the item itself. Like, okay, are people looking to collect a head, or are they looking to have a function to it, something like that. And we'll kind of pull from that into the ideas. And then basically I look through that list. That list gets sent first normally to senior staff. And I'm like, hey, do y'all see anything on this list that looks intriguing? And since Chicken is in, or Chickeneer rather, since I'm going to use his full name, is in the senior staff channel, you know, he can immediately pipe in with, that's not possible.
From a coding standpoint, you mean?
And not a lot of stuff. Yeah, exactly. Not a lot of stuff he says that's not possible, but he will say things like, hey, if you need this coded, it's going to take X amount of time. And, you know, sometimes we're planning things multiple weeks ahead of time. Sometimes, I mean, holidays sneak up on us all the time. We'll blink and we're like, oh my gosh, it's Labor Day. Crap.
Especially this year when you got so many other priorities going on with just the state of the world we're in, so I perfectly understand.
Well, that July 4th this year, we did at least kind of start looking at things about 2 to 3 weeks beforehand, but then we kind of forgot what we had talked about, I guess you would say. And then it was, okay, well, we kind of wanted to have the community input more because there wasn't that much input on that promo sheet that I normally get. And so that's whenever I did that community meeting a couple weeks back. And we were able to get the idea from there, which actually is funny because that Liberty Bell idea is something that came up during the staff discussion the original time around. Not the exact function of it, but the item itself, using that item. So it kind of spurred our memory of what we had already talked about weeks before that. But yeah, just looking at that promo form is the biggest thing. It's got, I mean, I looked in there the other day and I think it's got stuff going all the way back to 2013.
Oh, geez.
And there's still some things that they suggested it and it wasn't possible, but now it's possible. And so they still kind of little bits and pieces from different things get added in. So it's taking that, and then obviously we have to apply things being, you know, fair. We're not going to give you anything that's overpowered. I love when people are like, it needs to have unbreaking 100. I'm like, yeah, you're funny.
It's a fine line to walk because you don't want it to be useless, but you don't want it to be overpowered. Then you have the good ideas, and then you got to run through like chicken, like what Chickeneer, what is possible. So it just makes the list shorter and shorter it's really things that are out of your control to a certain extent, because like you said, you don't want it to be ungodly, but you don't want it to be sitting in a chest somewhere, and you wanted it to be able to, and you want to be able to code it also. So it's definitely a tight rope to walk.
Well, and we definitely don't want to necessarily release a lot of things that are going to be sitting in chests, because we do have some standard items that we know are going to be sitting in chests. For example, you know, the birthday right around the corner. One of the items released always on the birthday is a birthday cake. All we do is change the year, but it's still a birthday cake. So some people collect them, but it is definitely one of those, you know, it doesn't really have a function. So it's kind of it just sits around. It's a collector's item at that point.
It's like an I was there t-shirt almost, really, yeah.
Exactly. And those items are not that bad, but you have to balance them out with the other types of items. Otherwise, you get people that are going to be upset. You're never going to keep everyone happy, but we do try to,
Yeah, you do what you can. I understand.
We try to balance it where we're not releasing all collector's items or all fighting items. I'm not going to go and release a bunch of things that are used for PvP because not everybody, wants to use them. Mm-hmm. They then get sitting in a chest just by the fact that people don't want to use them. And we want to do some cool things every now and then too, but definitely it's looking at the promo form, seeing if it's OP or not, trying to get a balance, and then honestly it's okay, what staff can come up with some unique lore, because by the end of all that process, I'm normally like brain turned off because I've used too much of it. Oh, yeah.
Just start to melt your mind. I understand.
Right. And I have to say and I'm gonna call them out on it, but Hashhog has an uncanny ability to create lore that y'all haven't seen a lot of it, because some of it is just like, that would be perfect if only it wasn't if only the item didn't do that. Mm-hmm. And you're like, no, it has to actually apply to what the item does. But Hashhog has some pretty good skills when it comes to lore, making it either rhyme or goofy or whatever we're kind of going for with the event itself.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's some interesting things that go on behind the scenes that we don't know about, especially when it comes to things like that and whatnot. I want to switch gears a little bit because I'm sure you've talked about this 1,000 times over your time here, and I understand. We're going to talk about staff, not staff in the names. Staff is in the term. Let's say we have not a new player. Let's say we have a player that's played for a year or so. They want to be staff. They fill out the application. They send it in. What is it you look for in a player's application and a player themselves? I know you've addressed this 1,000 times, but I'm just asking you for 1,000 more.
I'm going to say 100% activity. That's going to be the first and foremost limiter for most people becoming staff.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Like you gotta show up. It's
right. You've got to be active. You can't be like, and we get this, especially recently, we got this a bit. People came back, which is great. They came back from a long hiatus of some sort because of, being locked in their house or whatnot, or they're just happy that we're on 1.15, who knows. But they apply one day after coming back, and they've been gone for 2 years.
Right.
You're not going to be staff at that point.
Which makes sense, really.
It's just not going to happen. I need to see that, number one, you plan on staying, because staff training takes a long time. Yes, it does. And for some people, it takes longer than others because they aren't available during the times when certain stuff is happening, in order to actually get them cleared on training of handling all different situations. And I'm kind of revitalizing that currently, but that's a side topic. The biggest thing when it comes to being staff, though, is definitely, you're going to be around. I don't want someone who's just going to stick around because I made them staff, because they have the wrong motivation.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So 100% it's going to be activity is almost always the kicker. We can read the applications, and yes, there's a certain, I guess, thing that we look for. I kind of listed it out whenever I had the new one go live, but it's like, I want someone who's self-aware, someone who knows when they mess up. People always ask me, can you be staff even though you've been banned before? And my comment is, of course. In fact, some of my best staff actually had bans in the past. Now, granted, they weren't bans for like major issues, but they were bans for some minor things. And even a major issue after some time passing, people change. That's something that I've always applied to the EMC staff. People always change. And if you are self-aware of the problems that you had in the past and you are actively working to make sure they don't happen again, you could be staff. There's nothing stopping you from being a staff member. I also like people who are self-aware, because whenever it comes down to, I'm not online all the time. Granted, anyone could report a staff member to me, but not everybody reports every mishap that a staff member has. So I rely a little bit on the staff to kind of catch themselves on, I kind of went overboard there a little bit. Let me message that person.
Accountability. I understand.
Or a big one. I mean, I do this too. And, just kind of behind the scenes of, if you think what you read is my first draft, you are sorely mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
If I have a post, especially one if I'm responding to a sensitive issue, I have probably retyped it 5 times.
Oh yeah. No
because
doubt.
I typed it and then read it and decided it was probably not going to be taken a good way and changed it. And there's a lot of times that we have to do that as staff members. And so being self-aware of kind of how you're doing is one of the biggest things. Trustworthy. That's the next one that we kind of list in our description. It's a big one. Staff members are trusted with a lot of information. They are also trusted with a lot of, not quite information, but interaction. I do not expect all of the staff members to be happy-go-lucky all the time if they're dealing with a problem player. I do, however, expect the staff member to not show that to the community. They can, however, show it to other staff members in our private staff channel.
Well, we're all human. We get frustrated and everything, but you gotta. It's really like a calm under pressure thing, and you gotta know how to respond accordingly. I understand.
And some people need to vent every now and then, and our staff members do vent toward themselves and other staff members on occasion. It does happen. We've acknowledged that many times. My thing is that, number one, you have access as a staff member to a lot of information about these players. No, you do not have any access to identifying information because we removed all of that access in order to be compliant with, I can't remember the actual regulation itself, but we removed that access. But they have access to seeing, what you said in public chat for the last couple of months. I think it goes back 2 months or something like that. Staff members have to be trusted to not go in and read your logs for the fun of it. We only go in and look at logs if there's a reason. And I have had some issues with some previous staff doing it, and it's not a fun conversation to have at all.
No, I bet not.
And, those people are no longer staff, so not really an issue. But it's one of those big things that people don't quite understand how big it is until you start putting all the pieces together of what staff have access to. Moderators technically can vanish. We've explained this before. Now they vanish to help with illegal mods and to help track those people down. They are not allowed to vanish and stalk players for fun, because every single time they vanish, it is logged who they are tracking. So we do trust them, but we also don't fully trust them because we want to make sure everything is logged in that way. But they still technically have access. So yeah, trustworthy is a big thing. Active, I already mentioned activity. Friendly and fun, those go together. But, I can be friendly and fun sometimes. I can also be harsh and demanding at other times. I need a staff member who can be both. Don't be a stick in the mud about issues whenever people are just trying to have fun.
Well, you see, that's really good life advice, because that's what I tell people too. Is like, you gotta, there's a time and place for everything, and you have to have a little bit of a bite to you sometimes when it's necessary, because if people think they can walk all over you, they're gonna try. So you gotta, you do the best you can, obviously, and it makes sense. And everything's a case-by-case basis, but you gotta, people see moderators, they want them to be that fun guy, but they also have to be the hammer when it comes to it. And that's never, it's not something I really enjoy doing, but it's just something that has to be done because you gotta keep the peace, I should say.
Right. And I have had some staff members say, like, well, I don't like punishing people. Well, that's going to be a little bit of a problem because you are still, expected to defend the other players by muting or banning bad players. And yes, it sucks to have to do it because you wish everyone followed the rules, but the fact of the matter is that they don't. Mm-hmm. And you have to be okay with doing that. Now, I am trying my best to, focus on our staff being the friendly and fun side as much as possible. But there are sometimes when, chat just gets to the point where staff has to kind of put their foot down, and we don't like doing it, but we try to do so in a way that, gets things back to the friendly and fun atmosphere as fast as possible.
Oh, 100%. You gotta do what you gotta do. Like, it's not like you enjoy doing it because you shouldn't really have to, but it's just you gotta keep the peace. Pretty much all there is to it. What changes and features would you like to see implemented in the future? I'm sure you've seen EMC change drastically over the past 9 years. What are your goals, your personal goals for the future of the EMC and EMC community?
That is, oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty loaded question.
So let's go personal route, and this just came up the other day again in chat, but I need to bug Chicken Ear about it. Anytime that I run an event, I need something that I can just click to say this is an event, and it automatically sets all the flags to firework false, horse false, like all the things, so that I don't have to manually set them all. Because yes, it's great to have so many flags, but oh my gosh, so many flags.
Yeah, especially when people don't realize you got to set a lot of those manually, so it's like, hang on.
Well, yeah. It's a double-edged sword, and people will be like, you forgot to turn Interpearl off. I'm like, okay, I forgot one out of 20 other ones I got. Like, give me a second. But I really, really, and we kind of discussed this a little bit, and it kind of got shoved under the rug a little bit because of some other issues going on at the time. But I would really, really like there to be an option for players to use a simplified flag format. It's so complicated to even think of how it would work properly, but basically they would have to change modes into the simple format for setting, and then their residence itself would then respond to, the 4 to 6 that we had in the past, container use, the easy ones, because that way you're not having these people get so confused by having this long list. And I think, I love the fact that we have the ability to control little factors like that. But I also feel that as a whole, it does make the learning curve a little too steep. Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a lot to take in, I understand. Yes, I understand completely. I don't want to sidetrack, I'll get right back to you, but Day and I were just talking about that the other day, about making, I'm not sure when this podcast will drop, but me and Day are working on videos and voiceover to help people walk through, because especially when you first join EMC, you do the tutorial, it's a lot to take in. Like you said, I don't know if massive is the right word to use, but there's a huge learning curve to it. And there's so much to take in.
There's one thing about learning curve to it, but the issue, I think, also comes back to, of course, our slogan, play your way. Now, you can try to create a guide, and we definitely are going to be revitalizing the tutorial system. We've got one of the developers kind of starting to work on that into more of a walk through, okay, do this, now do this. But at a certain point, the people that want to go fight monsters, they don't care about learning what to do in town.
Makes sense, yeah.
That's
a good point, because a lot of people just live in the frontier as a whole. They either have a residence or they don't, but they live in the frontier. And like you said, it really is play your way. It's just, I guess, Daybreaker and my goals is to, I don't know if simplify is the right word, but to make it easier to grasp all the different commands, so that way you see it's almost a showcase of here's what we got, here's how you can use it, now use it the way you want to use it. But like you said, it really is a play your way kind of thing, especially if people want to fight monsters. They don't really care about all the res commands, so I'm planning like a series of smaller videos for residential commands, group commands, chat commands, things like that, so that way people, it's almost like reaching a handout, because some people are more visual learners versus some people more like learn from a book and whatnot. But it all comes back to play your way, and like you said, you're working on the tutorial and whatnot. Is there any other changes? Right. I kind of cut you off there. Sorry about that. Are there any other changes or features you want to implement?
I would say that's probably just like my main one that it comes up frequently anytime I have to set flags. I'm like, oh my gosh, there are so many. It's definitely something to lower that learning curve. It's one of those things that it's just really difficult, even with a video walkthrough, even through anything like that. It's a lot different than it was in the past. I definitely did start playing, back when you had those 4 main flags. I didn't really care about the ability to breed specific animals or anything like that. And I get the concept of, wanting so much control. And so I understand that. But that's still my personal goal, to have something that we can fix that, because, if I joined right now, I would maybe be a little overwhelmed, and I consider myself okay on the video games grasping concept, but there's a lot that is currently in Minecraft that I'm just like, oh my goodness. So anyway, moving on from that, definitely as I mentioned before, still playing with different event ideas. The issue with events that a lot of people don't realize, and I've harped at the developers again and again over this, is the more features that they add for you to have, the more complicated running an event is. Yeah. Because, for example, if I want to host creature capture, for example, we'll just say that one, and we don't want to do it on the game server because the game server is messing up or something or other, I have to somehow make it where you can't bring your own items onto the residence. Great. I just change the residence, stash, the residence inventory. It's something that we can do. It's been coded in. I got that. Okay, now people are going to vault in, so I turn off vault. Okay, now people are going to mail in. Okay, so I turn off mail. Now, the issue, which we still haven't turned off, is that people have the ability to trade items without needing to actually be right in front of each other. They have that GUI that pops up. Mm-hmm. Well, that GUI would allow them to technically trade one and it appear in the arena. So for every great little feature y'all add, it makes my events more complicated.
It's great from a player standpoint, not from an admin standpoint.
Right. And it's so complicated to try to get things to turn off in one way, but on in another way. I mean, creature capture was broken for the longest time because we had to change how fishing rods worked in order to handle them being used normally. And then we had to change the code to allow the specific adding this flag will allow you to use it to actually grab something, which is what is, one of the main factors of that event. And those little things, I would I am still looking into different event ideas all the time.
Mm.
But every time I go to test an event idea, there's something that our current features make it where it's like, oh, I can't make it fair. I need to make it fair. And granted, I love the players to death, but a good portion of them can find a loophole faster than I can find a loophole.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll have the loophole before the event even started. I just announce what the event is, and they will already know what the loophole is.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be able to host events, but they have to be fair. And so I really want more code to be able to control that. We're working on it. Mm-hmm. I've been told after 1.16, I can have a little bit more code.
You can bug them a little bit more.
Yeah, basically. So definitely more event styles, but as I mentioned before, that issue. Shout out again to Hashhog. I'm just going to say it. They have been working their tail off when it comes to fixing Empire Olympics. They broke ridiculous amounts, and Hashhog has been fixing them manually like crazy. We're in the testing phases with staff at this time that this is being recorded, to kind of run some of those events. Now, granted, when I ran the Olympics the first time around, we did everything manually, and it was a lot of work. So
yeah,
hopefully it makes it where we can have more players enjoy it, because definitely in the past it was only if you could get on during a certain time would you be able to enjoy it. And we want to try to keep those situations from being so much of a hassle, especially with those big events. But at the same time, keeping people from bringing their own horse to the horse races, or sneaking one of the items out, all of those factors we have to put into things. I need a little bit more control. The game server gives me a lot of control, I have to say that much. Mm-hmm. But I need a little bit more in order to be able to do what I want to do.
Which makes sense. Okay, we're just about to wrap up here. I gotta go with one of the most stereotypical questions in the world. If you could give advice to a new player or your younger self, what would it be? So what have you learned from your time in EMC that you wish, not really wish you could do again per se, but what taught you the most, what you learned from the best?
I would honestly say it's just one of those faux pas I see people do all the time, and I did it too a little bit. I went a little bit slower, but if you're trying to start out and make a shop, don't try to put every single item in at the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Yourself ragged.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I started a shop with glass, sand, and cactus. That was my first shop on my residence. I built up to then starting to do wool, but then from there I created the TARDIS Mega Shop, and I was at the time, Leo Waste and Alex Chance at that time, but Alex C now. We all had that mega build style, and we all, we had to create a system in which we were not the ones stocking it. We had to, and thus the whole, you can sell it to me for $41 or for 41 rupees, and someone can buy it for 42 rupees. I make 1 rupee profit, but I didn't have to stock it myself.
Yeah.
But that kind of system, I see a lot of players trying to, they're announcing they're maybe a couple weeks in on the server. And they're announcing they want to build a mega build. So they start building the building first, and then they stock it, and then they realize how much of a hassle it is to try to actually keep everything in stock, especially now. I can't even imagine with the amount that they've added. There's a reason we took out the Empire shop, because just updating that was hassle enough.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And the amount of items that are currently in the game, it is just, do not try to do it all. Pick a specialty, a little niche in the market, and focus on that. Build up a little bit, then build up a little bit, then build up a little bit. You're going to enjoy it a lot more if you want to participate in the economy. If you don't want to participate in the economy, go wild, do whatever you want. But if you want to participate in the economy, try to go slow, even though it's hard because you see all these big buildings. Go slow, put in the work. Like, I mean, I would shear wool for hours while watching movies when I was younger. Put in the work, take your time, and you will get to have that mega shop made out of diamonds and everything like that. But don't expect people to just give you this ability to have this mega shop 2 weeks in. It's a little bit too much of a expectation.
In a similar vein, I think a lot of people see a shop as like oh, made a shop, now the rubies are just gonna pour in. It's a grind, really. So I would extend off that and say, don't expect it to turn a massive profit in a short amount of time. It's not a give rich quick scheme. It's a process, and it's work. But like anything else, anything worth doing is worth. I messed up the saying, but you get the point.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're extremely busy. We all are, but I would like to personally thank you for coming on here today. Alrighty, everybody. This has been the EMC podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Let me know who you would like to see as a guest, and I'll do my best to get them on. Due to the nature of people's schedules and just real life, I'm not able to have a set release date, but I'll do the best I can. Just let me know who you'd like to see. Thanks for tuning in.